This podcast is brought to you by Collector Legion. For all your single and gaming needs, there is no substitute. And if you're lucky enough to find yourself in LA with time to play, check them out for the best in-person gaming experience this side of the Pro Tour. Welcome to Split Second Sorcerers. I'm your host with the most extra sleeves in his deck box, Isaac Sears. And today on the pod, we have the Mana Traders Invitational Champion, semi-finalist of Pro Tour Lord of the Rings, and the last person to qualify for the Pro Tour via Vintage. It's
the one, the only,
Caprioso, or as you otherwise may know them, Dominic Harvey!
Oh, close enough. Thank you. That was quite the introduction.
Well, you know what else is quite awesome is getting lucky. So we got to know, what's the luckiest you've ever gotten in a game of Magic?
The luckiest so there have definitely been times where I had to hit my 1%er so the next turn I could be alive to hit another 1%er, and maybe then I can convert that into a win. And if you play enough, especially online, you're going to have spots like that, and then sometimes where it goes the other way. So not to answer the reverse of the unluckiest I've ever been, but I remember distinctly a match of Vintage actually against Justin Gennari, a big Vintage streamer, where I'm playing Oath of Druids, and I get the game to a spot where I'm going to trigger my Oath on my upkeep. It's going to be great, unless the last two cards in my deck are specifically the last creature and the Gaia's Blessing, which if it was any higher, that would get milled and reshuffle. And if the creature was any higher, I would just attack next turn and be fine. But instead, I mill the creature the second to last, draw the Blessing as the last card, can't cast it, and then deck myself the next turn. And it had to be... So I was trying to do the quick math of, all right, so I've got like 40-something cards left, and it has to be this exact spot and then this exact spot. And really, you shouldn't do the math, because the only thing it can do is demoralize you and tilt you even further. But I did the math and was not happy with what I said.
Doing the math is akin to looking at the next card on the top of your library, for sure. Never do it. What's your favorite tourney venue?
Favorite tournament venue? So a lot of the time, when I was grinding the SCGs and stuff, or if GPs back in the day, it was usually a one and done kind of thing. You know, I'd go to this city and I'd see a venue once, and then before long it would be on to the next city, the next venue, and a lot of those just kind of blurred together. I would say though, I actually like the venue in Baltimore quite a bit. The one that they've used for a lot of the SCGs and so on, where it's downtown, very central, pretty easy walk to wherever you need to get or wherever you need to be. Good food options nearby, also good food options in the venue, and then the venue itself, once you're in there, was pretty well lit, pretty easy to navigate. So I don't ask for a lot when it comes to venues, and I think. You remember the venues that are bad and why they're bad more so than the reverse. But honestly, as long as I can kind of get there, get what I need, and it's not too much of a hassle, that's all I care about. I'm an easy man to please.
That's all he wants in life. What's your favorite card to try and wheel? Doesn't matter the format, doesn't matter the time period.
Well, there's the classic like cube experience of you open like X-Arc plus Twin in a pack, and you're thinking, well, I'm not taking one of these. Which one am I going to send around and dare people to take otherwise? So basically anything like that is any 2-card combo where if I'm going to take one half, and I know if someone has the stones to take the other half, then I've wasted a pick and maybe my whole draft lies in ruins. But I'm going to take that gamble and hope for the best.
What's the best time period of your favorite constructed format?
So, deep cut here. 90s kids will remember this. I'm going to say 2006 Extended. So this was... I started playing in 2005, so middle of Kamigawa. So that time period, naturally, I'm going to have a lot of nostalgia for. But as I went from complete beginner to starting to play competitive, and then just learning, devouring everything I could, and playing on Magic Workstation and stuff, Extended felt like the kind of biggest frontier at that point. Massive card pool, but not so large that it was overwhelming. And it was the PTQ format, so you had a lot of churn, lots of change week by week, lots of GPs. The Extended Pro Tour, Los Angeles, is one of the first PTs that I watched the coverage of. And back in the day, this was just the top 8, and it was super grainy, standard definition webcast footage. So you had to navigate the labyrinth of the Wizards
break
website,
down the
which
pixels
was
in your mind's
an ordeal
eye.
in itself. Yeah, and then hope that their whatever weird plugin they were using was going to work properly. Yeah. And once you cleared those hurdles, you could watch the matches. And I remember just being like enthralled by that. Not just because it was the tournament coverage for its time was pretty good. Lots of fun matches in there, but just the format really stole my heart. And so when I was trying to actually like really take it seriously, I built the blue-green Heartbeat combo deck.
The Chris
So
McDaniel,
Heartbeat of Spring,
babies.
Early Harvest. Yeah. And that deck, so as this teenager with no allowance, basically, the deck that didn't need any fetch lands or shock lands was actually like surprisingly affordable, right? So I would spend hours just goldfishing that, playing that online, and then when I was able to build a copy myself, just do that in person as well. And I, early on in the pandemic, one of my projects actually was reassembling a copy of that deck, which I have just lying in a deck box in my closet somewhere, which is, it's kind of nice to just pull out and look at and goldfish
It's
from time
such
to
a
time.
fun deck to goldfish.
So that, so that time is when I really like knew I was hooked on Magic, and still here 18 years later. But once we get to 2006, that format, because Extended was on this 3-year rotation cycle, it keeps evolving and changing over time. New cards come in and they have a pretty big impact. And so you get to Worlds of that year, so about a year and a half after that PT, and Extended is one of the formats in Worlds. And at this point, Worlds, it wasn't the Worlds that we saw each other at just a few months ago. This was a kind of 3-day, 3-format extravaganza where usually one format would kind of get ignored because you can't really prepare for so much at once. And just the preparation process was so much more primitive back then. But so usually that would be the day 3 format, which was Extended. But this time, what you saw was instead the format was like broken by 4 or 5 different people in 4 or 5 different ways all at the same time. And so you had all the decks people knew about, and then this amazing roster of decks just coming out of nowhere, just dazzling people. These weird and wacky combo decks, the eggs deck that people might remember from the early stages of Modern, that was born basically that tournament. With that card pool, and it just didn't exist, but these geniuses like came up with it, and there were 4 or 5 different decks like that. And so this format, which I already knew I was in love with, I watched the coverage, and suddenly it's like a whole new format that I'm even more in love with again. So long answer to your question, but I think that's how it should be, because like if you love a format that much, you have a lot to say about it. So there you go.
Well, so the folks at home can get to know you even better than they just did. What's your day job?
So right now is Magic stuff. So content, coaching, all of that. Before I moved to Canada, I was a software developer. Mostly kind of junior general roles, and I'm probably gonna take a stride back towards that at some point once the Pro Tour grind for next year has called off again. Open to other stuff, of course, as well. But right now, I'm mostly focusing on Magic and having a good time doing that.
What's your favorite pre-Magic tournament jam? Like song-wise. So one answer would be the song that inspired my Magic Online screen name, which I butcher, everyone butchers, it's fine. No judgment here. So that's Introduction and Rondo Capriccioso by Sanson. So this is like a 10-minute piece of classical music. It's not the thing you put in your earbuds when you're walking through your match and you need to pump up. Yeah, it takes some time to ease in, but it builds towards this really epic finish. So if I have, let's say, a break before a top 8 or something, that's a nice one to just queue up and just like bask in that by yourself and just clean your mind and just really get in the zone. In terms of just more conventional stuff, I have a playlist which I'll kind of cycle through. There's like Blow Me One Last Kiss by Pink is a nice one. There's Melody, which is a like instrumental piece by Idiotape. There's like Korean electro synth group. So that's I like that a lot. And then one piece which like has put the brainworms in my head, I can't get it out now, is Shapeshifter by Cell Dweller, like the Blue Starry remix. So this is a hardcore song. Would recommend people check it out. But it builds to this point where it's just this guy screaming like Shapeshifter in the background. What a great banger for a Magic tournament. Cell Dweller and Shapeshifter.
Well, one of the fun games that we would play is you can take Magic card names and just replace it with that. So like Muldrifter or Wave Sifter if you're a Glimpse of Tomorrow fan. There's a lot of cards like that, actually. But yeah, once you do that, you really can't
no going
unsee
back,
it the next time you hear it. So I just have this voice screaming Mole Drifter in my head periodically, which probably does not help my concentration, but there you go.
Well, like Mole Drifter, what's the first Magic card that you remember?
So I had one of those magazines, like I don't remember if it was the Pojo magazine, but stuff like that. Yeah, well, so in the UK, where I was growing up at the time, we didn't have quite the same kind of mix of the usual like gaming magazines and stuff. So it was just whatever we could get our hands on. And I had something which I think I'd asked my mum to buy me because it had some like Pokemon TCG content or something at the time. And then there was a spread on the Magic decks from, I guess this would have been like 2000, 2001. And I tried to interpret this the best way I could because I looked at this and the art seemed really cool. And clearly it was a step up from the games I knew at the time. But so it's likely the first card that I like understood as a Magic card was your Wildfire or some Urza's block card, invasion card that would have been on that spread. But the first cards I owned for myself, I bought the Rat's Nest theme deck, Betrayers of Kamigawa Precon. So this was the one that had the Umezawa's Jitte in it. Yeah. So my friend at school had taught me how to play with the cards that he owned, and he just had some like mono green Precon himself. And so when I wanted to get my own stuff, I went to the store, and the guy there who I think since has become like this big wig at Konami and has gone on to bigger and better things. But at that time, he was just like the rest of us, like this pimply kid working at the game store on the weekends to earn some cash. And he knew, like he was in the know. He pointed me towards this theme deck. So I open it up and he tells me to read this artifact, like reading it, trying to process it. And it's like, I didn't know much about Magic at this point. And he would go on to like fleece me and trades for cards, which he knew were good, but I wanted his Myojins and Dragons and stuff. But I saw the Jitte and thought, I don't know much, but I know this thing is messed up. And
even at a young age, Dom Harvey knew.
So I guess that would be the first Magic card that I felt like I really understood on some level.
Well, maybe a card that you thought you understood but didn't. What's the worst card you've ever registered in a constructed tournament?
I've registered a lot of bad cards. So I got to think about this one for a second. There are cards which, I mean, they're bad cards, but they fill a specific role as they're a finisher in a combo deck or something. So like Sanguine Bond, like the 5-mana enchantment, you gain life, they lose that much life. Cool card, cool in like EDH casual formats. Terrible card constructed, but I had this Open the Vaults combo deck where you're getting back your Filigree Angel and stuff, and so you needed a way to actually convert that into a win through sweepers or whatever, and it did the job, even though you hated to draw it at any other moment. And trying to think of some like diamond in the rough where it's like, I know this is bad, but I know I can make it work. And I mean, there have been a lot of those over the years. I'll come back to that. Hopefully, inspiration will strike me.
All right, that's that. All right, Miss Kravitz says I gotta keep the noise down, so we're gonna have to wrap this up with one last question.
Okay.
Steak.
Sounds good. Chicken
or chicken fried steak?
Is there a vegetarian option here? Because otherwise it's going to be a tough choice. But
no, I got you. Broccoli or cauliflower?
Okay. I guess cauliflower, but it's really making me pick my poison here.
Well, as we come to
it's diabolical, honestly.
Well, as we come to a close here, do you have any upcoming tournaments the fans can sweat you in, or perhaps a place where the good people can find you or your content?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of local stuff. Now that I'm not traveling all the time for the PTs, and have more time to focus. Then there's the regional championship, which again I'm not chasing the invite there, but just going there to hang out and have some fires in the oven. Hopefully we'll have a nice little brew for that one. And then once we roll around to next year, you've got PT Chicago and then unannounced PT2, PT3, which I will be out hoping to run it back and And yeah, so we'll be in the loop, as we say, for a while longer. So hopefully you can catch my coverage there if I'm doing well enough.
Well, that does it for this episode. Thanks to my guests, Dominic Harvey, Richard Garfield, and you, the viewer. If you all have any guests or questions you'd like to see asked on this program, feel free to let me know in the comments or just hit me up on Twitter @LikeIkes. And remember, folks, it's handshake, sign the slip, then throw your O3 deck in the trash, not the other way around.